Mathisen. And on today's episode, I'm going to, of course, be talking about the Apple Cup and the performance the Huskies had, and then kind of a little bit about the whole season that the Huskies have had this year. And then, of course, I'll be getting into the head coaching talk and who the Huskies might be getting, who's looking like they're going to land, and who they're striking out on, really. Just all things Husky football I'll be talking about today. And just getting started right off the bat, going to be talking about the Apple Cup, of course, breaking down what happened Friday night. And it wasn't pretty. It was not a very pretty game at all. I mean, that's really how you have to describe it because the Huskies got blown out. Then the final score, 40-13, sums it up. It was 40-13 for a reason. Wazoo was the better team. And the Huskies came out and looked horrible at all facets of the game. They played horrible on offense, played horrible on defense. They couldn't get anything going. It was kind of like they gave up on the season. Now I know they were playing for nothing but pride. I thought going into the game, the pride factor, going up against the Cougars, being able to defend their long win streak, having not lost to them since 2012 prior to the game, I thought that that was going to be enough to really motivate this team and them go out there and show whoever their future coach is what they're capable of doing. Show that they may have struggled a lot this year, but they're capable of succeeding. But that's not what happened. I mean, they got blown out from the get-go, and really the most shocking thing from last night, or not last night, but Friday night at the Apple Cup, the most shocking thing was they were only down 13-7 at half. I think it should have been and could have been a lot worse than just 13-7 at half, because with 13-7 at half, Huskies, I mean, they were in it still, even though they were being outgained immensely. Wazoo at half had around, if not over 200 yards already. I think it was over 200 yards. Well, the Huskies had 78 total yards at that point at half, with 75 of those 78 yards that they had in the first half coming on their final series. So really the Huskies couldn't get anything going. I mean, you look at how they started the game, 3 and out, -2 yards and a punt. 3 and out for 4 yards and a punt. 3 and out with an interception, getting 1 yard on that series. That's the first 3 series for the Huskies. 3 and out, punt, 3 and out, punt, 3-play interception drive that combined for 3 yards total. I mean, that's just the Huskies' offense had been horrible all year, really, but I mean, this was a new low for them. Had they not gotten that little 9-play, 75-yard touchdown, then they would have less than 10 yards in total offense in the first half. That doesn't happen. They only ran 18 plays too in the first half. Like 18 plays, that's nothing. You compare that to the amount of plays the Cougars ran. I mean, just looking at it right now, the Cougars ran 38 plays. The Cougars ran 20 more plays than the Huskies did in the first half. And they were lucky. The Huskies were lucky to only be down 6. Yet when the second half came, they didn't capitalize on that luck. They were dejected. They came out and just didn't. It wasn't momentum, but they had a glimmer of hope. They were still in it. Yet they come out with the ball in the second half and they go 3 and out, give up a touchdown, then throw an interception. So it was just a weird game for the Huskies to watch because they looked like they gave up. I'm not saying they did give up, but that's what it looked like to me watching the game. It looked like a team that was ready to go home, a team that was ready to get it over with. I mean, it was really just a combination for the reasons why they struggled so much. It was a combination of play calling. That was really the big one. And then some poor decisions by the young QB and just a few drop passes by receivers really didn't help either. So a combination of things really compounded and caused it to a point where this Husky offense looked the worst that it had all year long. And the issues start with the play calling. That's the number one issue. That was the number one thing. And it was Junior Adams' third game calling plays for Washington, and it showed that he didn't have experience. It showed why he was replaced as play caller at Western Kentucky during his second year as OC. Because when he was at Western Kentucky, his first year he was the offensive coordinator. He called plays the whole year. Then his second year he was still the offensive coordinator, but the head coach took the play calling duties from him. The head coach took them from him because he was doing so bad. And Junior Adams, in his first game calling plays for the Huskies against ASU, he kind of gave them a glimmer of hope. He kind of tricked everyone. He tricked all the fans for two series. For two series against ASU, ASU had no answer. Washington was marching down the field at will. They were getting whatever they wanted that game to start the two series. Since those two series, Huskies offense has been as worst or as bad as it has been all year, if not worse. It has been horrible. I mean, in the game against Colorado, they struggled to do anything against a team that, let's face it, did not have a good defense. Colorado isn't known for their defense. And the Huskies offense looked horrible the whole game. And now against Wazoo, another team that, yeah, they're okay. They're nothing special. It's not like they have some lockdown defense. The Huskies offense came out and looked horrible the whole game, from snap number 1 to snap number whatever the last snap was. The Huskies offense fell flat. And I mean, it was Junior Adams' inability to adjust. It was his inability to adjust to the game plan. Against Wazoo, UW had 7 series that didn't last more than 3 plays, with those either being 3 and outs or plays where there was an interception within 3 plays of them getting the ball on offense. In a game where your offense only has 10 total series, having 7 series that last 3 plays or less, that's just inexcusable. It's just inexcusable in any game for that to happen. And it lies on the adjustments that need to be made as an offensive coordinator. As a coach, you have to adjust your game plan. You can't make a game plan and then just expect it to work even if it's failing. Like, it was failing from the start. From the start against Wazoo, the Huskies were struggling. Like I mentioned above, they start off with 3 straight 3-play series, or less than 3-play series, that ended in interception, yet the Huskies didn't change anything the whole game. They kept that same offense. They kept doing the same plays over and over again. And I mean, what was Junior Adams going to think would happen? What did he expect to happen in that play or in that game when over and over again you're running the same thing? The major issue that everyone had with John Donovan coaching offense for the Huskies was he would always stick to the inside run. He stuck to the inside run too much. Pretty much every series when John Donovan was the offensive coordinator would be a handoff up the middle. That's what would be the case. So Junior Adams like, oh, well, I'm going to change that. We're not going to just run it up the middle. I'm going to pass the ball on first down more often. That's what I'm going to do. The fans will like that. But no, he does that, but then all it is a little screen pass. That's what Junior Adams loved opening up the game with. A short screen pass that never worked. The Huskies have run so many screen passes this year, yet every single time it seems like the receiver is incapable of breaking it out. He's incapable of breaking it for anything more than 3 yards in some cases. I mean, they opened the first 3 drives for Washington against the Cougars were all passes. Those plays, they went for -2 yards, -2 yards, and 1 yard. Those drives resulted in a punt, and an interception. So yeah, he's not just handing the ball up the middle to get stuffed. But is it any better? Is throwing a screen pass any better than just handing it off? I don't think so. And I mean, you look for on those screen passes for your receiver to break it off, because on the screen passes the Huskies ran, it was always going to be one blocker out there for two players. So it's always going to be the receiver is going to have to break one tackle. And if he breaks that one tackle, he'll get 10 plus yards because it'll just be the safety coming across the field to make the play. Yet Roma Dunze, who more often than not was the guy getting the play or getting the pass, more often than not, he was not able to do that. He was unable to break the tackle. And again, it just comes back to Junior Adams not being able to game plan, not being able to switch up his game plan in the middle of a game. Now, while the coaches were a major factor in the loss, a huge factor, probably the number one factor, I'd say that. But the players, they made some mistakes. They made some errors where it could have helped them fight their way back into the game. Now, for starters, with that, there were a number of drop passes. There were a number of times when Sam Heward made a great pass. He made a pass, hit the receiver in both his hands, only for it to be dropped. And that was something that last year was talked about a lot as being an issue with drop passes, with especially Rome and Jalen. And then this year, it kind of was put on the back burner. There weren't as many noticeable drops this season, but it came back again with Heward in making his first start. Heward was going to need the receivers to help him out. He was going to need some help. I mean, he's making his first start. It's the Apple Cup rivalry game. It's at home, but still, it's his first start as a true freshman. And here he is making these passes, making good passes, hitting the receivers in the hands, only for them to drop the ball. I mean, that's just dejecting for a quarterback. In his first start, he makes a great play, only for it just to be dropped. And what made some of these even worse was these passes that hit the receivers in the hands got tipped up and got picked off. Heward threw 4 interceptions against the Cougars. However, you could likely chalk up 3 of those as just unlucky in terms of the Huskies, in terms of them being dropped balls that got picked off, tipped passes, or just, I mean, on that one that on the replay, if you didn't see it, it looked like Heward was just throwing it right to the Cougar player. If you look closely or notice, there was actually supposed to be, I believe it was going to be a 5-yard in route. I don't know who it was, but he was running a 5-yard in route, and he simply slipped on his cut. It was a timing route for Heward. Heward was throwing it as a timing route, and he didn't see that the receiver fell, so he threw the ball thinking the guy was going to be there to make the catch, only for him not to be there and it to be picked off. So it was just unlucky plays time in and time again for Heward making his first start, and that's never going to help. I mean, with Heward, he got his first start, and overall, I mean, he looked okay out there. I mean, nothing special. He went 17 for 31, 190 yards. He had 1 touchdown pass to the 4 interceptions, of course. Obviously, he was nervous out there making his first start, but you got to give him credit. I mean, he went out there series after series in a game where it turned into a complete blowout and they had no hope of winning, but he went out there, and even making his first start, he never appeared flustered to me. He always seemed in control to me. The offensive line did a great job of protecting him. It seemed he was really not hit too much at all. I believe he got sacked once, so he got comfortable in the pocket. It was just an errant throw here and there, or an unlucky tipped ball that really, in the end, did them in and really made it hard for the Huskies to win that game with just all the miscues, all the errant passes, not all the errant passes, just the unfortunate things that came about really did them in. Now, moving on a bit, just a season of embarrassment, kind of, because the Huskies came into the season with high expectations. Washington came into this year as a team that looked like they could challenge for the Pac-12 championship. Last year they technically were the Pac-12 North's champion, but didn't get a play in the Pac-12 championship, of course, because of COVID and having an outbreak on their team. So they came in this year with expectations of returning that. They returned really all their key players for the most part, lost a couple of guys, but for the most part, the big name players, the stars who were expected, the young guys who were expected to take a step forward, they all came back. And it just didn't materialize. The season from week one, where they lost to Montana, that really set the tone for the rest of the year. That really told everyone what this season was going to be about. And it was going to be a hard year. I mean, the Huskies offense, it was one of the worst Husky offenses I've witnessed. I mean, they averaged 21 and a half points per game. They were not scoring. It was just a sad offense to watch. It was an offense that was incapable of producing. It was incapable of getting anything going. They didn't, and I think one of those reasons was I don't know if they had a true identity. They Everyone knows Jimmy Lake, their former head coach now, wanted to run the ball. He wanted to pound the ball down the opposition's throat. Yet it it never came to that point because the Huskies don't have that star running back. They were never able to get anything going offensively rushing the ball. And Jimmy Lake pointed out to that time and time again that inhibited them from then being able to pass the ball or being able to do anything. He pointed out run issues, but in my opinion, that wasn't the issue with the passing game. It was the issue with the Huskies offense stemmed from their play calling choices and just their mindset of running the ball. The Huskies will finish the year as the 124th ranked rushing offense. That's out of 130 teams. So that's the seventh worst rushing offense they had in the NCAA this year. They averaged only 98.4 yards per game on the ground. Yet every game, it seemed like, with John Donovan and Jimmy Lake, these guys were trying to run the ball. And it was never working time in and time again. Because why? Because the opposition didn't fear the Huskies passing attack. They didn't fear Dylan Morris at all because Dylan Morris wouldn't take the deep shots. And when they called pass plays, it wasn't deep shots they were calling. They were calling little crossing routes. So the defense could always stack the box. There were times when they'd have 7, 8 guys in the box. What would the Huskies do? They wouldn't throw it down the field. They'd run the ball. They would run the ball when the other team had a stacked box. You don't do that. It's just I don't know what to say to that, but that's not what you're supposed to do. When the other team stack the box, you throw it. You make them pay for not respecting your passing game. Yet the Huskies never did that. Huskies never made the other team pay, and that did them in. Their struggle just this whole season, it was painful to watch. I mean, they're finishing at 4-8. They're not going to be going to a bowl game for the first time since 2009, I think it is. They lost to Montana week one. They they finished the year losing 4 straight games. They never really they faced adversity and they didn't beat that adversity. They could not overcome the adversity of just struggling. They couldn't figure it out. And the Huskies, they have players who can be successful. Washington has good players. It is really just going to be all about can the next head coach, can the guy who comes in capitalize on these guys' talents? Can the coach come in and utilize the players Washington has and put them in a position to win? Because one thing Jimmy Lake didn't do was that he did not put his players in a position to win. He did not put out the best offense for the skill guys he had. He And that's something that is big. You can always recruit for your style of play, but your recruits for your style of play, they're not going to be at your school when you get there. It's going to be 2, maybe even 3 years before your guys come in and your style can really shine. You can really have guys who fit your scheme as a coach. So, what a great coach has to be able to do in a situation like this, what a great coach has to be able to do when they're coming into a new school is utilize the players that are there already. Utilize the guys that the team has and mesh that with your system. You have to combine their skills and put them out there in the best situation to win. You can't come in there and be, all right, this is how I do it. This is how I want to do it. So this is how we're going to do it. That's what Jimmy Lake did. He came in here and was like, okay, I'm a defensive coach. What do defensive coaches like? They like a power run game. They like to run it down the opposition's throat because as a defensive coach, that's what I hate. So that's what he wanted his offense to do. He wanted him to pound and ground the game, time in and time again, low scoring games, rely on the defense to win it 17-10 or 17-7, 13-3. That's what he wanted. But he didn't have the skill position or the players for that style of offense. He didn't have the running backs for that offense. His best running back was Sean McGrew, who's 5'8", 5'7", 5'9", something along those lines. That's not going to be some guy you just hand it off the middle every single play. No, he did not have Alabama's running backs. That's how he treated the offense, as if he had these NFL size and NFL talent backs. Yet he didn't. So getting into talking about who the next coach will be, I mean, it's gonna be a big decision. And I mean, let's see. There's been a few rumors, a few substantial rumors recently, and really the big name or the name that I have been hearing over and over again has been Matt Campbell. I mean, that's been the guy who for now a week or two has been kind of the name that the Huskies are going after. Matt Campbell's their number one target. And I'll run through how kind of I heard about it, what kind of progressed as because I first heard him being their number one target probably a week and a half ago, I think it was. But at that point, it seemed as though Matt Campbell was destined to go to USC. It seemed like USC was going after Matt Campbell, and it seemed like he was going to go to USC. Yet, I heard just recently on, I think it was yesterday, I heard yesterday morning that Matt Campbell turned down USC, according to some sources. That's what they were reporting on. So he turned down USC yesterday morning. And then yesterday afternoon, evening type, I was hearing sources were saying that UW was at Iowa State and they were having a meeting with Matt Campbell. And then at that meeting, or it might have been an earlier one, I don't know the exact specifics on this, but apparently, there was an offer that Matt Campbell got from UW. GenCon upped it to $7.5 million per year. That's what I heard from one of the sources for over 5 years, and that Matt Campbell liked that contract. That's what one thing I've heard. So if that's all correct, then it sounds like Matt Campbell's going to be the next head coach at UW. And I've also heard that UW is having a press conference Monday, so that's likely when it will be announced if it is in fact Matt Campbell. But then, of course, now just recently this morning, there's being a lot of talk about Kellen DeBoer being the actual head coach that the Huskies are hiring. So really, it's really, I guess it's between those two guys who it is. I kind of am looking at Twitter right now with people talking about Kellen DeBoer. And those two guys are they both can work out here at UW, I think. They both might not be, they both aren't players or coaches, I mean, that I love, but they're both guys that are the right fit for Washington. For Washington right now, what they need is the opposite of Jimmy Lake. Jimmy Lake failed miserably. It's as simple as that. That's all you can say. He failed miserably. And what they need is the opposite of him, and that's what these guys are. Kellen DeBoer and Matt Campbell are both offensive coaches. They're both offensive coordinators in background, and they know offense. That's what the Huskies need because, let's be frank, their offense sucked. But a big thing now, if it is one of those two guys, and maybe if as big as the head coach hire is their assistant coaches hires. Who do they bring on as assistant coaches? Because that's what cost Jimmy Lake his job, his assistant coaching choices. Choosing John Donovan as the offensive coordinator plagued him from day one. Bob Greger, his defensive coordinator, same thing. It plagued him from day one. He made poor decisions there. What the new head coach for the Huskies is going to have to do, if he's that offensive style coach, if he's offensive background, then what he needs to do for the defensive side of the ball to rebuild this Husky defense, because let's be honest, I mean, they're going to lose a lot of their DBs. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if McDuffie, Gordon, and Buki are all gone. So if all three of those guys are gone, they're going to need to rebuild that defensive back. That was the number one. Maybe not. I didn't check, but they were number one in passing defense going into the Apple Cup. They kind of allowed a decent amount of yards to the Cougars, so it might have lost it, but I still think they are number one based on how big of a gap they had. So just getting to my point, though, as an offensive-based coach, you want to hire a strong defensive-minded coach to be your defensive coordinator, and they need to hire someone who's had success as a defensive coordinator, not just experience. That's what Jimmy Lake did. He hired John Donovan, who had experience as an offensive coordinator, but no success. So if it is Campbell or if it is DeBoer, then it's going to be a big, big piece of importance for the hire. And if it is Campbell, and if it is that $7.5 million per year number that I heard, then I think that might be a bit steep for Campbell. I get that he's a good coach, but $7.5 million per year would put him at number 6 or 7 on highest paid coaches this year. So that might be a bit high for a guy, Campbell, who at Iowa State, he went 3-9, 8-5, 8-5, 7-6, 9-3, and now this year 7-5. So he never had a consistent great year after great year. He was consistently good, consistently 8 wins, which at UW you want to expect more. He did a great job of winning the big games, and I think that really helped put his name out there, helped gain him traction on this head coaching search. So in the end, really nobody still knows who is going to be the head coach. It could be DeBoer, it could be Campbell, or it could be some name that I'm not even talking about. I mean, I guess Dave Aranda, the Baylor guy, maybe it's him. Maybe he's still in it, even though apparently Baylor is re-signing him. So it seems like it's not him. But in all honesty, with Jen Cohen as an athletic director, who knows who she is going to hire? We're just going to have to wait and see. We'll see if that Monday press conference comes to fruition. But until then, that is just about all the time I have for today. Thank you very much for joining me on Husky Dash. Again, this is Dash Sports TV. Follow Dash Sports TV on all platforms, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Follow them for all your news on Pac-12 football. Also have an NFL show, so follow them for that. Just follow Dash Sports TV for all Pac-12 news and NFL news. But this has been Nathan Mathisen here on Dash Sports TV, Husky Dash, talking Husky football. I'll be back again next week. Maybe there'll be a head coach hire by then, so I'll talk about that, see what he's done, see if he's announce any assistant coaches by that point. But again, until then,